All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to my Wednesday stream. I'm going to be doing some contribution to Simply Test Me today. Um, so, we've been working on Simply Test Me to get a new version rolled out that is built on Drupal 9. And when you React, that replaces the existing site that has been around for quite some time and is built on Drupal 7. We're really, really close, so it's really, really exciting. Um, but we have some bugs. So I'm going to be working on writing some tests today for the next 2 hours to get us closer to launch. But I did want to do some quick housekeeping with the management and also show off people Violinist. Um, Violinist, if you haven't heard of it, is a service that runs automatic updates for your PHP dependencies using Composer. So think of like Dependabot that actually works for PHP. I know I've had Dependabot randomly send me a composer.lock update, but it's not very often. Violinist does that for you at a very affordable price. And one of the cool things is it monitors Drupal core releases or Drupal project releases, along with Drupal security releases too. So one thing that I want to do is I actually have a merge request from Violinist to upgrade the Simply Test file. So one thing that is neat is it runs nightly. So as we make commits to the dev release of SimplyTest on Drupal.org, the website gets an update. So I'm just going to merge that pull request. And I need to update this branch as well. And I'm going to merge this one too. So one of the things we did to make contribution to SimplyTest easier is all the configuration has moved out of SimplyTest and now lives inside the website wrapper and now lives inside the SimplyTest distribution itself. So I'm going to go ahead and update my local environment. Whoop, that's in the fixtures. Let's just get a new term. Let's just pull. I don't want to use the built-in. So I'm going to do get checkout main. All right, there. Let's do composer update. So what I'm going to be using is Nightwatch.js. And Nightwatch.js is an end-to-end JavaScript testing framework. And we're going to use this to test our front-end code written in React. Nightwatch.js is what's used by Drupal core, so we'll be using Drupal's testing suite. If you aren't familiar with, actually, I don't want to open that right here. If you're not familiar with Nightwatch, I do have a testing workshop repo that walks through how to run Nightwatch and write Nightwatch tests. I gave this training at MidCamp, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to propose this for Drupal Camp Asheville as well as a training. So yeah, we're going to take advantage of Nightwatch and write tests for Simply Test Me. So we've got all this in. So now I'm going to get my local environment started. Actually, I don't need to. We're going to start actually, I do need to get it started so I can figure out what exactly I want to test. DDev updated, so it's going to pull us images. So let's go to the profile. So that is one thing that I want to help contributors overcome is when you work with a Drupal distribution, you have like the main website and then you've got the actual development trunk nested deep within it. But we'll get there once we get it launched up. Let's see, open in terminal. So I'm going to just make a new branch and I'll end up pushing this onto Drupal.org or here. Let's actually just make the issue quick. Drupal.org, simply test. That way I can just create an issue fork and use that branch right away. Okay, there's other. I'm going to ignore those issues and just focus on this. Add Nightwatch.js testing for the launch form. All right, so get this going. Task, code. I'm going to assign it to myself. Not that anybody else should really be looking at this, but just in case. Why don't we tag it as part of, I don't know what the DrupalCon sprinting tag is, so we'll leave it off there. We need test coverage of the main launch form. All right, so we'll save that. And this is just going to uncover all kinds of bugs and initial setup. If you caught my stream on Sunday, I tried going through a handful of things, and it's been a long time since I did a fresh install of my site, and I found all kinds of bugs that I didn't know existed. Just because I had been working in my environment for so long. So we're going to use this to get started. All right, so show commands. I'm going to add the issue fork as a remote, and then I will check out the branch. Awesome. So we have that going and that there. So now if I were to go to simply test.ddev, there we go. Wait for it to load up. All right, site's up. We're now going to work on writing the tests. Let's begin with, I wonder if profiles can have their own Nightwatch tests. I know you can have your own PHP unit tests, but I guess we'll have to, let's find out. So to write a Nightwatch test, you create a folder and you call it test source Nightwatch. You know, I closed my workshop, but it looks like I'm actually going to need to reference this. So I even remember how to do all this. I have an example module in here. So yeah, test source Nightwatch. You need to have a test folder, and then you usually need a site install test script. So let's go ahead and new folder called tests. We'll just call it, you know, installed test.js. We just want to make sure that things get installed properly. I'm going to copy that code. Now, I could copy code that's already in the repo, but I'll go through here. So all the tests you tag. So I'm going to tag it with simply test. And the Drupal runner, or rather with Nightwatch.js, you always have to call a before and after. And one of the things we have to do is called Drupal install. And this is a custom Nightwatch command that ensures we have an installed Drupal site. These commands are mapped from, let me get to the Drupal Nightwatch commands. So inside the Nightwatch folder, you can have assertions, commands, pages. I don't remember what page, it's like a fake page, I'm pretty sure. And then you have tests. And inside commands, we have Drupal install, which runs PHP on the server to install your site based off a setup file. So we will get back to here, and we're going to create our own install script. And again, I'm going to just copy what I wrote for my testing workshop, because it's pretty straightforward. Actually, you know what? I don't even think we need, yes, we do. We do need this because we have a few things we want to run after install. So put a to do here, to do, perform some actions after installation. So let's look at this Drupal install command and find out why this is throwing an error. Could be that new line at the beginning. So if we look at the Drupal install command, we want to set the install profile. That's it. We want a setup file, and we want to specify the install profile to be simply test. So we'll say that this is simply test. That is the name of our profile. And let's copy this path from the content root. Now remember, whenever things run for Drupal, test-wise, they're running inside the web directory, so you make it relative to that path. So I deleted the web / there. And you also want to run Drupal uninstall after your test, otherwise the database will live on. And that command is also documented in the core Nightwatch folder, and it runs a PHP script that tears down that database. All right, so we want to create a test that visits the home page, and we're going to write some tests. So let's figure out, didn't delete enough. We want to delete some of this boilerplate code. Let's figure out what we want to test. So when we load on the page, let me log out so we see a fresh page. So we want to make sure that the launch form is mounted and we have some of this default text. So let's go to Nightwatch.js and see how to test for these footers right here, these footer items. So we go to API reference, assert, or expect. No, let's go to the developer guide. Finding interacting elements, writing assertions. Here we go. So assert text contains. So that's what we'll work on. Let's go here and let's review the DOM. So we want to make sure that the launcher mount exists. So we're going to go here and we'll say browser assert that. No, I don't even know if that is the right way. I wish there was a better way to get the autocomplete to work. There's just not. So write in assertions. Assertion error. Finding and interacting with. There should be. I feel like this was so much easier when I looked at it last time. So it should be browser dot assert exists. Writing assertions. They're all based off of the node assert, working with page objects, finding elements, unit testing. Let's look at core. I don't know why I'm having such a brain block right now that I can't figure out what I'm trying to do here. Drupal relative URL, wait for element to be visible. I just want to assert that an element exists. Contains text. Install profile test. Oh, element present. There we go. Great. Thank you. So we're going to add this. We're going to visit the home page and we need to assert that the launcher mount element is present because that's what's used to render the React app. And we'll assert that. Is this text inside of the React app? I believe so. All right, so we will assert that it contains, and that one is you can do expect this to be, that's interesting. You can do it that way. I just wish the autocomplete was way easier to use. So let's do assert element present, that assert element like contains text, launcher, mount, and we'll pass it evaluate projects. And the reason why I'm doing this in Nightwatch.js is we're going to interact with a lot of JavaScript components, which is easier to do in Nightwatch because it's JavaScript versus in PHP with PHP unit and functional JavaScript. So now we're going to set up and run Nightwatch just to verify that this initial bit works. And the way I'm going to do that is I probably will just set up the ddev testing. So inside my workshop, I have the ddev Docker Compose testing YAML, which has everything defined for running tests inside of ddev. Otherwise, I can just run it locally with SQLite, but I'm pretty sure that I ran into an error on Sunday where running everything with SQLite didn't cause a constraint, and it did when using SQL. So I'm going to just copy and paste that in here. So what this does is it adds a Chrome driver instance to my local development environment, and it pre-configures PHP unit to talk to that and for Nightwatch to talk to it as well. Which this means we can't run it headlessly. So I don't know if that's the exact route I want to go right now. Sorry for being wishy-washy there. So the other way to configure it is we go to core.env.example, and let's paste this to .env. Let's review a few things. So Drupal test base URL. We can post that to be the same. So why don't we actually, let's change it. We'll have it be, I'm going to run it all locally. I don't really want to put it into against my ddev. So we're going to run Drupal test base URL is the local host. This is the test database URL. WebDriver hostname will be localhost. We'll have it auto start and run it. So now to run the tests, we have to go into core, run yarn install. More and more, I'm beginning to think that the PHP unit and functional JavaScript tests might be easier. But once we get some commands added for running this, it shouldn't be too bad. And then how we run it is we do yarn test Nightwatch and we pass the tags. Again, all this is documented in my test workshop. And let's see, I have it documented actually via GitHub pages. Test running. It's not fully documented. Okay, there we go. We write, where's the tooling? Okay, so we'll do yarn test Nightwatch, and then we pass the group. Oh, sorry. So the yarn and we're going to pass tags, and you pass the tags that are required. So like, oh, sorry, it's just tag. So we're going to do tag simply test, and let's just see what happens. So this should run. This will run Nightwatch. It's going to launch Chrome driver, and it's going to install a sample site. And that sample site will have simply test fully installed and allow us to assert some of the data here. Now, one quote unquote problem is the fact that this does have to do a complete install and teardown as we go. So we might want to use no tests specified. Oh, is it because I'm in core? Let me see something real quick. Huh. It's supposed to pick up no test defined. Using source folder. It's when I ran this before, it picked up from the main area. So you know what? I'm going to bail out on Nightwatch.js actually, and just do it with. But that's so much harder to interact with. Let me try moving it to an actual module or to the theme, or just see if I don't want to spend so much time fighting just the testing. All right, real quick, try to run it. It says it can't be found using the source folder, but every time I've run this before, it found tests outside of that folder. And let's see how Nightwatch discovers its test real quick. Nightwatch global.config search directory. I mean, maybe I do need to move this, but before it always found it with the contrib. So let me just look again at this testing workshop. If I could click right. So I have test source Nightwatch. Test. Oh, that's why. I don't know how to type. And I named this just test when it's tests. All right, so let's try running that again. See, I was about to bail out on using Nightwatch just because I had a typo, and PHP unit would have had the same problems. So this should hopefully, this will find our test. It's going to launch Chrome driver and install the Simply Test profile and let us test out that the launcher mount exists and the data's there. Okay, awesome. I didn't tell it to run in headless mode. Session not created. This version of Chrome driver only supports Chrome 87. Looks like I need to go. I can't remember if I installed Chrome driver manually or via brew. Or it's because, oh, sorry. Nope, cancel that. I was using the built-in supported version of Chrome driver, and we documented a workaround for this. Brian Perry helped me find this workaround. So let's see. Chrome driver. Did we document? No, we didn't. I believe we just had to go into core and it's yarn. Oh, I think we just did yarn upgrade Chrome driver because we're using the version of Chrome driver provided by core, which is pegged to what works on Drupal CI. And I believe this is what we had to run. Bummer. I cannot remember what we did to work around it. And hopefully, let's see, Chrome driver. I really wish we documented that somewhere. But I believe we just went to packages and Chrome driver. We yarn install. Okay, this is it. This is the workaround. And I'm going to write this down so I don't lose it. So you go yarn install Chrome driver at latest, and it's actually yarn add. Okay, here we go. So you do yarn add Chrome driver at latest. Let's do document upgrading Drupal cores Chrome driver. Run. All right, it's at least documented. So that's where it's always good. Like if you hit a bug, write it down somewhere that's not, hidden, because you never know when you need to come back for it. So now that we've done this, we now have Chrome driver 89. Let's run the test. It should launch and probably take a bit, which is the one downside with this. And really what we could do is not do a install and tear down. We could hack it and say that the tests don't expect you to install. It expects an installed site. But that would be kind of an anti-pattern. So let's see here. So the file does not exist. Yes, it does. Oh, no, it doesn't because I renamed the folder. And so if you looked at the site and it showed the currently installed site right now, that's because there is a database connection available for it. But how the test works is you install it and then it creates a database table prefix. And so it's like having two sites installed in one. All right. Wait for this to get going. Let's go launch. And so now I'm fairly certain it's going to be executing the site install script. So if we were to go to the SQLite directory, so sites default files. So sites default, if we look at files, well, there's a handful of these now. But if I were to open it, that actually did not take that long to run. No, doing schema checks. So it installed, but we already found a bug, and I just force closed PHP Storm because I hit Control W instead of, or I hit Control Q instead of Control W. So sorry about that. Let's reopen. One thing that I did see Core doing that I want to add back in before I rerun it, and I'm excited. We're actually going now, so that's good. This log and end and assert no deprecations. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to run it here and see what this log and end means. Log and end. So callback. Log in console only on error. Ends the browser session and logs the console if there's any errors. Oh, cool. So this logs errors if there's any that were on the page, and that's what we want to know. All right. I do know that we had one error, and it said something about simply test projects, config, simply project settings. There was no schema. And it's correct because that's not how this is done. It looks like it was just like a weird formatting error. So we can run that. All right, so we fixed that. So Drupal has config objects, and then you can define schema. So that way they're like typed, and it's never validated until you run tests. So you never know what's wrong until you run a test. So let's get everything back up and running. I had this one running PHP locally. So if you notice, I'm running my test just with PHP's built-in web server. It's launching Chrome driver itself, and it's using SQLite for testing. And that's all you need. You don't need to necessarily run it in Docker. You can. I prefer not to because I like having everything on my machine and be able to see if I want to run headlessly or not. So we'll get this to run again. The only bummer is that it is slower. And hopefully this gets us to a good point. So maybe it wasn't a fast install, it's just it hit that error faster. And what it's doing is it's importing all of our config. So if you look at the Simply Test profile, we now have config, sync, and this is all of the config that should be installed with the profile. And this was added in Drupal 8. Something, 8.6, let's say, where profile can specify config true. And if that's set, then the site will install with whatever config is inside config sync. And I'm beginning to think that that might be, oh, failed. Unable to install Drupal. It was probably, the initial install was probably unsuccessful. What happened here? Warning, file put contents, failed to open stream, permission denied. But it passed the test. So what in the world? Oh, it passed the test because it's loading the DDev environment. That's fun. All right. Trying to think on what we should do with this. I'm wondering if it's one that we well, let me try to fix the permissions here, maybe. Like, why is it trying to set this? Generate a new hash slot for the test run. I feel like I'm just going to be hitting a wall now and should just move forward to something, to a different way of running the tests. Oops. And give it one more try. If it doesn't work, I'm falling back to Phpunit and we're just going to get things running that way. One thing I can do is go to Drupal.org. And we had the schema issue for the project settings. So I'm going to open an issue for this bug report because it prevents tests from running. When running a Nightwatch test, validated and failed. Here's the fix. We'll do that. We'll see if this installs now. I don't understand why this install broke. Because we can see it's installing, like it's here. When you do a functional install test, like it installs Drupal. We've got the database there. You know, everything is here. Private, temp, services. But once again, it died. So I'm just skipping that. All right, let's create this issue fork, and I'm going to fix that config, and then we're just going to move to functional JavaScript tests. Because I don't have time to sit and figure out why this is being so finicky. It's a really big bummer because I did want to use Nightwatch.js for this, but I also just want to get tests written at the same time. So I'm going to provide this fix, projects, config, the schema, web IDE, there, commit, fix, schema. Great, that's committed, and now we'll see here that it shows up, and I'm going to do needs review, save it. All right, let's get some tests going. I want this to just, I'm just going to just add testing for the launch form. Tried using Nightwatch. Had too many issues. All right. Sorry for that time wasted. I guess it wasn't entirely wasted. It's just didn't go as I was hoping. As I say, error, nothing was pushed. All right. So I do know that we can run these tests from an install profile. So let's do directory. We're going to go back to test source. Let's go to functional JavaScript, and we'll do a install. We'll do launch form test.php. Actually, I guess this should live in launch itself, but I'm going to put it all inside the profile because all these modules are dependencies of it anyways. So do namespace test simply test functional JavaScript. Find our class. WebDriver test base is what we're going to extend, and we're going to set the install the profile to be simply test. This profile key is what profile that the test runner installs. And we'll set the default theme to be, I feel like we have to set this, which is, defaults to the default theme. But I feel like everything needs this to be set. Install default theme from class property. Profile. Oh, so it works if the install profile has it set. So we don't need to actually do that. Great. So we're going to do this test. So public function launch mount exists. Say this assert session element exists. Let me say ID launch mount. Just to make sure we did that right. Sorry, it's CSS, not ID. All right, so there we go for that. If we look at the phpunit.yaml, how do I have it set up? I have it set up to run all locally. I'm going to turn off headless so I can review everything. And for this, again, I'm using my built-in PHP server, and I'm going to restart Chrome driver myself. And now I can go and click on run. And we're going to run it via functional test. Oh, no test class found in. Oh, there's no test launch. So PHP, you need to prefix everything with test in order for it to be considered an actual test that can be run. Again, it's going to take a little bit because it is installing a config file that, or an install profile that leverages a bunch of configuration. So part of me is wondering if this is a good testing route, because most people might use Behat for this, or Cypress. But it'd be nice to also just leverage the Drupal code that's available for running tests. But if this takes too long, which it seems it might, that's when we're going to have to work around it. And the other, whoa, what is going on here? Why did this open it all in tabs? One second, I did. Oh, is it because I left that as empty? An empty quote? I'm going to stop that and replay it. So Drupal.org doesn't run tests for profiles. So we might just want to step around this anyways. The hard part is Simply Test is also a service. So we have the website repo, which is what you see not here, but on GitHub. And then the Drupal.org repo is like the main code source. So I want the code to exist in the profile for the testing and not in the GitHub repo. So hopefully we can get this to run. So I'm checking a few messages real quick. All right, so hopefully this gets it to go off. But I think it might need to go with the approach of, oh, all right. That actually, so that took 1 minute. I guess that's not too horrible. There's ways to improve that. I know Thunder CMS has done that. So the launch mount was wrong, and let's just take it from, we're going to say, let's look at this here. What is the element name? We should see this. So we do this, assert session field exists. And this will help us test the accessibility, because I'm fairly certain when you do field exists, I thought you could search by its label. Field exists, field, find field, named, maybe not. No, it says locator, input ID, name, or label. So we should be able to find, so we should be able to say, not evaluate Drupal. Is this really the label for this? It is. All right, so there. So we want to have that field exists, and we'll run it again. And we'll go through and assert this page. One thing we can try to look at, Thunder CMS. That's not it. Thunder distribution. Archived. Wait, why is this archived? Thunder CMS is still a thing, right? Download, or is it because they moved their main repo development to Drupal.org? Okay, that's it. So I know Thunder has a trick for making installs faster. And let's get their tests under source. Well, fixtures. What do they have in fixtures? A few things there. So if we look at, oh, so they have Nightwatch traits here. So maybe I just don't know what I'm doing right, and they've got all the tricks. Or are they running their own Nightwatch tests that aren't even interesting? But this keeps failing. Element not found. Launch mount not found, but oh, apparently that's really not it. I am just a very bad developer today. So let's look at themes. Let's look at the app, the wonderful giant app file that needs to get spun out. And figure out why I'm just not launcher mount. Get element by ID, launcher mount, launch mount. Oh, all right. I'm going to rerun that and read their test fixture trait. Say they use this to be able to download an existing test fixture and import it. So that gets the test fixture. Oh, AWS test fixture. Let's look at Thunder test trait. So this will install Drupal and replace user 1. It prepares setting information. And what it will do is it will read if there's a dump and then import that on install instead of always doing a fresh install. So what we could do is actually dump a fixture if it exists and then import it between installs to improve the performance of the simply test. So while this runs, I think I'm going to start working on that. Okay, our test passed. That's great. So let's try to make it a little bit faster by running this. How do they dump their tests in a certain way? I want to go back a bit. Thunder test trait, functional JavaScript, article creation test, Thunder JavaScript test base. And that uses the Thunder test trait, which we have here. All right, so I want to quick create a simply test JavaScript test base file. We'll do Drupal, we'll do test. Simply test functional JavaScript. This is an abstract class that extends WebDriver test base. And so what we'll be able to do is this profile thing can move here and change this to be simply test JavaScript base. Let's save this. I don't know if we really need to make a trait, honestly, because we're only going to have functional JavaScript and not functional. So I'm going to just take a few things that are here. So this init front page, window size 1024/68. That's the same size, so we don't need that. Totally borrowing / stealing a few things here. CKA editor. There are some really awesome helpers in here that I wonder if we should get. They have like Travis code. Okay, let's go over now to the important part, which is the install Drupal bit. Why do they this do install? So let's look at install Drupal. So this install Drupal, this do install is where they're injecting themselves. So let's copy that. So they export to Thunder dump file in the server and then load that. Otherwise, they do an install. I'm checking something else I have. I know I experimented with this before somewhere, but I need to see if I actually still have it. So sorry, just one more minute. Because I had a test where we were running it and we were dumping it at the end. And I cannot remember how I did it. But I can't show where it's from, so sorry. Okay, so that's it. So we did a all right. So what we can do is we'll create a new directory and we're going to call it fixtures and new file. We're going to create a new git ignore. We're going to add it and call PHP unit or functional. We want to ignore this functional JavaScript fixture.php.gz. And what we'll do is we're going to check, we're going to say it's there. So if file exists, fixture, and we're going to always have it be gzipped. So we're going to just say require that. So remove to just so we're going to try the fixture else parent do install. And after this, we're going to create a so Drupal core has a db dump command built into it. So what we're going to do is db dump command equals new db dump command and db dump command run new input I'll do new array input, and output will do new buffered output. Because we don't actually want to capture anything from here. What does this want for a parameter? Give it an empty array. And what we can do is file put contents fixture, or sorry, we'll do compress.zlib / fixture from the, we want to do output and have output equals the buffered output, and do output fetch. All right, so now what this does is on install, it's going to reuse our test fixture between test cases. So the first one will be slow if you don't have the file, but the second one should be fast. So let's do test launch form mounted. Let's just write a test that verifies that the launch form has mounted. Then we're going to write another test that starts interacting with it. And we'll go from there. And hopefully we can start getting some test coverage on this form. I'm curious, so they have a GitHub repo, but where's the repo fork? Again, this is the from the Thunder repo. Don't want to translate. All right, well, they have the source file that I was looking for. So we could generate this test dump, and the next step would be test failed. This script can only be used with MySQL database backends. Forgot that. So what I'll do is ddev describe. And we're going to get the database port. And use the ddev database to generate the fixture. So that'll be, this MySQL db at localhost db. That should be it. So I'll hit play again and we'll see if it goes through. Undefined. Oh, come on. That means it didn't connect. And so I'm just copying. What did I do? Oh, 127.0.0.1. That makes a difference too. If you do localhost, it won't connect over TCP. It'll try to do like a socket or something. So let's try this again. And hopefully it'll create a dump that we can run against. I'll check something else. So I want to see how big of a file it generates, and maybe we can commit it to the repo. Core does this in various places. So if we were to look at the fixtures, no, that's the release history. The migrate module, migrate Drupal. So if we look at here, there's various, this is the file that'll end up getting generated. It's essentially the database statements converted to PHP code, but it's going to take forever for PHP Storm to parse it. Oh, failed to open stream. Man. So maybe what I just need to do is why wasn't I able to write? Oh, because it's missing a slash. Ay. Apparently this is that kind of day where I can't get anything just right the first time around. But I'm wondering if we should just document this actually as a manual task to do. We'll see. Because the next step, the problem with with committing a database dump like this is if you do have configuration changes down the road and needing to import those, which that we can work around. This we want to call, I don't know why it didn't invoke the parent. But the other thing we want to do is, well, I'm just going to copy it because I have it. So we want to import the config. We want to import the config after it's been launched, but apparently this has changed. Required extension list module is missing, which is all right. Config importer test. Okay, that looks good. All right, so the test launched and we have our test fixture here. So if we open it in the Finder, how big is this? This isn't telling me very much. 129 kilobytes. I don't really want us to have to commit that. So we'll just keep it as, however this is right now. So now that took almost 2 minutes. If I run it again, it should be really quick, is my hope. The config sync directory is not defined in, oh. So, well, that's weird. Like, why shouldn't care about that because it's from the settings, but I guess we're importing this before the settings have been defined. So what we'll do is we have do install. Well, there's also prepare settings. And I really want to know why it's not taking in. this. So what we'll do is it copies in all of this here. It generates the settings.php file. We'll copy this over when we want this to be profiles. We want this to be equal to this here. So we'll do, we want it to be profiles config sync, and then we do this, right settings. All right, so let's give that a try again. And I really, really hope this works, because then we'll have fast, automated, fast functional JavaScript testing. Oh, hash salt, because all that's normally done in the install. I mean, the good part is this is taking 16 seconds only. So let's copy some of the required code. Let's see what else is set. Yeah, all this should be good to go then. Let's hit play. All right. So it went from being about a 2-minute test run to hopefully it's only about 20 seconds. Now that this is all fixed up. Still long, but considering the fact that it's importing a database and running a few things, that's fairly decent. Great. So 27 seconds, I'll live with it. Considering it is a functional JavaScript test, it's installing all the config. So one thing I did realize we have to do is, so if we go to this do install settings, we need to have some projects installed, and I'm feeling like this is going to be really hard to test in the UI completely, but let's give it a shot. So we have all these things. Let's do setup. So inside setup at root, install Drupal. All right. So one thing that we need to do is this container git simply test core version manager. We need to update and install some of the release data. So let's just call this core version manager. So let's do that here. And we want to get 8 and 9. And we want to get several test projects. So let's call this test projects. And we'll test with, we're going to go with path auto and password policy. Those are two things we've been testing with, and this way we can kind of expand them. And we'll do, part of me feels like we need to do this, have this be part of the test fixture, but we'll wing it. So project version manager equals this container git project version manager, and for each test projects as project. Update data project. So this will import the things. Actually, we need a different service for that. Projects fetcher is what we need. Project fetcher. So we do project fetcher, fetch project, and we did the project. So fetch project gets it from Drupal.org and saves it, which triggers fetching the versions. This feels really messy. I'm not a big fan of it, but we're gonna just wing it. We're gonna do public function test can search for project. And again, this is gonna feel really awkward as in PHP code, because what we're gonna test right now is that when we type for password, that we get back the actual project here. And we've got a bug in right now where can't determine a short name. So I'm wondering if this was a bad idea going down the route of these full functional tests, because there's plenty to be shown that things don't work. So this feels, there's just so much to have to test. But let's type in, what we'll do is we're going to figure out how to get this to, I don't know how we can test an autocomplete very well. So what I want to do is be able to test that when we've typed in password policy, we see password policy. But I don't know how to get persist open while, here, let's do focus thin, target, active. No, it straight up wants it when you've typed into it. So maybe it's when we set this to true. Nope, doesn't listen that way. Ugh. This feels way too hard. Wait, why is... I'm going to work on a different fix. We know there's a bug, and this just feels like I'm going down a rabbit hole to no end. So I'm going to do just a quick restart. I'm going to just reset. We're going to fix a bug that we know exists. And this disappeared. We know that if you type in a module name that matches in the API, it needs to be string to lower. So let's just work on that. because this didn't get anywhere except for some frustration. I'm gonna add it though. Example. Maybe I'll be able to come back to it and feel less flustered on it. So let's just git checkout. Let's just write a test to fix that one issue. So the problem is when you go and you do the autocomplete with a like a camel case of the name, it's broken. We can test that at least. Without having to go do all the things. So I'm going to change this back to my SQLite setup. And that autocomplete is in the projects endpoint. So if I go to autocomplete, you can see it's here. So we go to tests, and if I go to source, let's just create a functional test. Do functional, and we're going to call it projects autocomplete test.php. Make the namespace Drupal test simply test projects functional final class projects autocomplete since browser test base. Find our modules. I don't know how to type. So we need to install our simply test projects module. Has a dependency on the update module. We got to copy. Oh wait, it's a functional test. We don't need to get that intense. So what we're going to do is we're going to do public function test auto import. We're going to test the auto import because that's what's happening right there. Is it's trying to automatically import projects. And all these were misses and returned no error. But when we have this one, it was a valid error, but it needs to lowercase the string. It needs to lowercase the project name. So if we did the like autocomplete results equals this Drupal get URL from route autocomplete. What's the route name? Simply test projects. There's no route parameters, but we want to pass the query. So in generating a route, you provide the route name, parameters, and options, and inside options is the query. Drupal get accepts either a core URL object or string. So in here, we have a query of just string, and we're going to call it commerce. We'll just even do auto. And one of the expected results, let's see, path auto, preview, we should get back that kind of data. So one, we should say, what does this get us back? Drupal get gets us back a string, the HTML received. What happens when we do this assert session response status code equals should be 200. How does this work? Parent status code. This session get okay. We're gonna do that. So we should get status code 200 from getting that route, and the results. Then we should be able to get the data equals JSON decode autocomplete results. This assert equals the expected is sandbox 0. Short name auto, title path auto, type is module, and the result is data. All right, so let's try running this. This should work. If we run, or rather it shouldn't work, the test should run, but we should get a 500 error in response. Exception default theme is required. That's right. So default theme equals Stark. I believe that's what most things do. Yep, because we don't actually care about the theme because we're testing a JSON route. Let's look at this. Yep, so we return a JSON response. And I'm going to make the issue for this 0 failed. Cannot install due to miss. Oh, that's right. We have to define the profile as simply test because these modules only exist in the profile. So let's run there. I'm going to create a test. Autocomplete and importing missing projects broken on capitalization or special characters. So let's do bug report, that. When searching for a project not yet imported, the route fails if there is capitalization or spaces versus underscores. Example, auto returns from the Drupal.org API, but not on the releases endpoint where case sensitivity matters, or password policy, which is all right. This will be a good bug to fix, and I wish I would have just started on it from the beginning. No schema for settings. That's really got to get fixed, but we have a PR, so I'm going to just quick fix it again in here. Run it. All right, so let's that, and I'm going to check out that branch and we'll start working on it from. Oh shoot! No, it's gonna. Oh man, I didn't think about the fact this too is now going to install all of the config because we have it flagged as based install. So this is going to take forever because all the modules are inside the profile. And I don't think there's a way to install modules that are located outside of a profile. Failed to connect to, oh man. Got that running. Run the test. Maybe that test fixture will be useful after all. That saves a database dump of the base install because we'll need that for functional tests after all. We'll see. So thanks for joining in. This feels like it was a lower quality of most of them, but it's just getting in the groove for this testing proved out to be harder than I expected. Come on. Current response code is 500, but 200 expected. All right, we got our test failure there. Let's go ahead and work on the fix. So we know the fix in here is there's a handful of things that I want to adjust finally. So we're going to have this be receive the request object, replace that there, and search from projects. We want to is equals string to lower string. So that's step one. So if we run that again, we shouldn't get a 500 error. And while that's running, I'm going to get ready to expand this testing to, let's see. Normally I would use a data provider here, but I don't want, every time you use a data provider, it does a teardown and startup, and I really don't want to do that. Test queries, or we'll say, yeah, test queries. So we want to test for path auto, password policy, and we'll do token. We'll do it simple like that. So we're going to actually just loop over these inside of the test function so we don't have to reinstall every single time. Because then it would take 3 minutes for all of them versus like a minute and 15 seconds probably. So we expect it to return. So it looks like it was about to work. So we expect it to return like that. This. And I guess we should also test a theme, which I don't know what we'll do the Bootstrap theme, because that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Bootstrap, I want to do theme. Made me realize I did this backwards. So now what we'll do is for each test queries as project name, and then as expected project data. So the string is the, well, let's rename this. It's not the project name. It's refactor, rename. It's sample project query. And all right, so now we'll run it, and we actually don't need this where it says 0 is that. So to return one result, which is the project data. So if I run it, it's probably going to fail on, well, not probably, it is going to fail on password policy because we need to add a step which converts spaces to underscores. I think that will be a huge first step and unblock some bugs. But we'll let it run first. to run. So this resets it to matches, and then matches is the project. Fetches it. Okay. Open the merge request. So we had some differences. It actually returned this as 0 and not a string. And I had a typo here. Just run it again. Just thinks that it takes a whole minute. I wonder if there's a way we could tell core to not actually install from the config. In here, so functional test setup straight. Class loader. Prepare settings. Write settings. Reset. Do install. So this install parameters. So the install profile. So yeah, I don't think there's any way we can hijack around that. But we did get the test here to fail. I'm going to add some messaging on it. Message expected data for sample project query. I'm going to assume that we failed at password policy since I didn't have that message set up and it did crash. So let's go back to here to and I'm sure there's a fancier way of doing this. But we will go this route. I'm sure there's some fancy regular expression that we could use, you know, right? Okay, let's combine all these things then. That's what they did there. This is simple enough to do. Let's hit play and we should fix this bug. So even though I didn't get all the test coverage I want running, at least one bug will be fixed. Which can allow for more testing. All right, great. We have a test pass now. So that's great. I'm going to commit this. What's in tests? I'm going to delete that. since the schema changes are in another issue as well, I'm not going to commit those, even though it would technically cause this to break. Let's just look at the cache diff. Perfect. Part of me feels like we should have that normalizing of the project name inside each of those services, but let's do it there. Because it's not called anywhere else, if I recall. So the search from projects. Yeah, that's only called in very few places. The controller, the import form, and the import service. Item machine name. The prefix string to search for projects for. Yeah, that should be. And really, the search is okay. It's just fetch project. And even then, the fetch project. So I guess actually where this needs to go is it's here in the short name. The short name from fetch project is what needs to be processed here. So what we need to do is ensure the short name is always lowercase. So we're going to take some of these changes and rerun the test and make sure that they still work, which means, unfortunately, I got to fix the schema again. So if I were to run the test, it should pass. And I don't like having to put this fix in just a controller because that's not a real fix then. So inside the project fetch, we always ensure that it's lowercase. The Drupal.org API is not case sensitive, but other APIs are. So, all right, so we'll replace that. But I guess the string needs to be processed here anyways when searching, or rather when importing. Yeah, because when we search, we don't want to search for it that way. So when we do search from projects, title, short name, order by range, select condition, title, and short name. All right, here's what we need to test for. I want to expand the test. That when we search for, oh no, this isn't working. Actually, let's do test searching for password policy again to ensure there isn't a double import. We're going to search for password policy again. We're going to do an incomplete, and we're going to assert that it matches this here. I'm going to run it. So my concern about this is if we had this string replacement running beforehand, that would have broken searching for like password and then Paul policy. Although I guess I don't know if that matters because that would match the machine name anyways. But we'll see. I feel like fetch project should always assume it's a machine name. So what we could do is even harden that. Let's look at so fetch project. I guess it would come up empty if seeing that there. So maybe this is fine. All right, I think we're good. We didn't get 2 back for this. We got back from the autocomplete. So as I can tell, fetch project. Just checking. Project type, sandbox. Yeah, we didn't end up with 2. We did not end up with 2 of the same project. So I'm good with it. Fix import projects on demand. So now we can push that. Now if I refresh, there. This fixes the import of projects which do not yet exist based on autocomplete queries. All right, so we'll save. That's ready. So that means if I type in commerce and I pick Drupal commerce now, I get all the versions. Great. So that's good there. The advanced options, we need to get Drupal core to have its Drupal core versions installed. So maybe that's the next issue I could work on. So let's check out this. Oh, my head. Okay, it was just out of date there. So autocomplete and importing. Fix the schema. One thing I think we need to do is on install, have Drupal core versions available. So let's make that a task. So we can do that inside of the profile. If I can figure out where I am. So that's something to be added here, where we ensure that there are default core versions. So let's make a new Drupal fetch Drupal core versions. don't know if this is a good, yeah, this will make testing easier. So let's just go for it. So function, and for this we'll have core version manager, which is then equals Drupal container get projects core version manager. And then we'll do for each 7, 8, 9. I have this somewhere. No, I do not. I thought I did in one of the tests. Modules, projects, test, source, unit, kernel, core version manager test. Oh, I just updated that way. So let's just do, guess we can just do that. So core version manager, update data 7, 8, and 9. Actually, not everybody uses PHP Storm, so let's do instance of core version manager. And we'll change this to service. There we go. Ensures Drupal core versions are available. Install. So now if we were to write a test, let's do test. We'll do file functional core versions installed test.php. Why is this marked as ignored? Not sure. Okay, now it's showing up. That was weird. All right, let's just quick write this test and I'm going to head out for the day. It's not as much work as I was hoping to have hit, but at least it's something. Let's go back to, oh, that's right, close that out. We'll go to profile, simply test, public function, test core versions installed, core version manager equals this, get core version. Probably doesn't need to be a full functional, well, it does need to be a functional test, but that tests the full install. So this assert not empty, core version manager get version 7, 8, and 9. So now if I run this by putting, okay, so I have the internal browser on, run it, create another issue, fetch Drupal core, fetch initial Drupal core release data on install. Call feature request. This isn't required, but would ease the contributor and testing setup. Oh, this projects thing is just going to eat me alive. Run that. basically, not basically, we should fetch the core, Drupal core release data as an install task. We fresh install a contributor. That way a fresh install by a contributor has core data, and we'll do our functional tests. It's a small quality of life improvement. For development. Propose resolution, add new install task. All right, save that. This is running. We'll see if it works. If it works, I'm gonna push it up and then call it a day. File contents. Now this is happening. That's okay. So whenever running a functional test from the profile is when this gets broken. That's new to me. So is this why? What? Oh, that just means that there's an error happening. So there was just an error that was happening. And it was this middleware. So, oh man, is that why? Shoot, that was fixed in 9.2, I think. They were having the same issues for the automatic upgrade. I comment on this. Man. Implement service modifier interface. Alter. Yeah. Register. Let's turn this off. I'm going to be so mad if that's why it wasn't working when I tried to do Nightwatch. Remove definition. I'm going to try to document this a bit at all. So I abandoned this due to a weird error. Then I hit the same with a functional test in the profile. I think the upgrade, the automatic upgrade team hit this due to the so the error is misleading unless you read the stack. All right, copy that and rerun this. All right, maybe that means Nightwatch isn't a complete loss, and we can get that rolling as well, which would make me feel a lot happier when testing some of this stuff. Well, I sincerely hope this test middleware is what was buggering everything up. Nope, it's not. And it's still running. Request with header. If Drupal and test child site. Oh, I gotta figure out. This obviously isn't working like it does in kernel tests. So let's see here. Drupal. It's gonna come up in some search. Outbound request failed here. Display relevant security advisories. This is where it's related. Core service provider. Let's see if we have this available in here yet to disable this. Do nothing if we're not in a test environment. The test middleware is not required for kernel tests as there is no child site. So is this. When it generates the user agent, it dies for some reason. And this issue is so huge. Outbound test fail for this, but that got merged. But why? So that's why Nightwatch was failing. I'm going to have to just keep documenting this because I don't know. Actually, I can't even test this as it crashes due to the errors reported and I'm going to just postpone it. And I thought this was fixed with, but it is a different issue. What do we do here? What's going on is we hit the following. And then it tries to go to line 443. But why is there a file put contents? Oh, else. Then we hit this. And the private key is attempted to be generated. So this should not be. So let's see if this test site persisted. I don't see the file. When issuing out an outbound HTTP request from within an inbound test request, then the outbound has to use the same user agent header as the inbound. A newly generated private key for the same test prefix would invalidate all subsequent inbound requests. Yes, I'm well aware of that. Oh, for some reason that's just broken. I don't know why I can't test it, but I can at least push this code up. So let's create the issue fork. What's weird is that this doesn't happen in a module. It happens when testing inside the profile itself. So what we could do actually, I suppose, I want to try this before I do exit. Let's move it. So we'll move it to here to simply test projects. I forgot it should be tagging these with the group simply test and simply test projects. To do should live in the simply test profile tests, but crashes. All right, let's see what happens. Running it. So if this runs, then there's just a weird bug with profiles and installs, and I just don't get it. I think we've proven that this doesn't do anything either. So I'm just going to remove that. In kernel tests, you could do that to bypass this problem. Not so much here. Weird. So yeah, like an install just can't make that change. I feel like if the actual fix is inside of here in this pull request, if I can show it off, if we can find the merge request. Oh, of course the patches are going to go. Let's go into the merge request. Changes. So yeah, so there's this to avoid cannot be set in. Yeah, apparently you can't fetch advisories, or you can't make outbound requests inside of the install or else it crashes. And yep, we can't do it. I'm just going to move on. I'm going to put it back into the simply test like the main profile code and commit it, and then it's just going to be that way. All right, so let's move. Create directory source and just drag this back over. and refactor it to there. Status, add simply test, git add tests, status, install Drupal core versions, or let's see, grab Drupal core versions on install, test, and I've gotten into the weird Vim loop there, and I'm just going to push it. All right, that did not go as well as I had hoped, due to the fact that we can't make outbound requests when the Drupal site is installing. So I don't know what we're going to do there, but I might hit up Ted Bowman because he would have an idea, and he's the one who is working on a lot of this. So I'm just going to quick reference this issue of outbound HTTP requests. Install was hit in. So thanks for tuning in. Sorry it wasn't as much Nightwatch.js as I had hoped, because it turns out we're blocked by some weird core issue. And yeah, but thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a good one.